Is the Vice President, Senior VP of CNR Research. It's a research firm that we contracted earlier this year to do some surveying of league bowlers. He'll go more into the details on what he's done, but he's been running focus groups for over 30 years so that we can get an accurate account of what's going on in the world of bowling. He's been doing it for basketball, for football, and many other sports, and now he's our bowling partner with us here in the bowling industry. Please welcome Dr. Relihan. Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you, John. Okay, yeah. Thank you, and there's so many people here, and it's great to be able to speak with you today. It's fun to get out of the office and get to Nevada. It's exciting. Anyway, since we began a little late, but I know we always like to end on time, I'll try to speed this up a little bit. This is about the title, Returning the League Bowler. So, just so we understand, come on. Just so we understand, there. Okay. It's about league bowlers. It's not about getting bowlers to join leagues, but we're going to be talking about why bowlers left their leagues, what it might take to bring them back. In other words, are there pressures, are there shifting demographics, less free time that are beyond the industry's control? That's an interesting point. Are there more compelling or simply just more activities competing for a typical league bowler's time? Or are there ways that the league experience can be more attractive and compelling in the 21st century? All of these, I suspect, you kind of intuitively sense that there's an element of truth in all of them. But the industry would sort of like a perspective on these questions so they can develop strategies capable of reversing what is an apparent decline in league bowling. To be specific, the industry wanted a detailed picture of why those who have left have left. What are the rational reasons? What are the emotional reasons? Are there specific factors driving them away? And conversely, what's the appeal of activities that may be pulling them away? What can bring them back? These are sort of the questions we hope to answer. So what we did is I conducted 8 focus group interviews this January. 2 of lapsed league bowlers, 6 of lapsed league bowlers, and just for contrast, 2 of current league bowlers. We did this in Buffalo, Chicago, Dallas, and Los Angeles to get kind of a spread across the country, get a little bit of, northeastern flavor in Buffalo, but also kind of get, in the Dallas and LA area moving that way. Now, just so you know, here's how we defined these. We defined lapsed league bowlers as people who had been members of leagues during the 10-11 season, but not during the 11-12. Most of these people had been league bowlers for typically 4 or 5 years. The new league bowlers were members of their leagues during the current season, but not in 10 and 11. So that's just kind of the contrast. I should say a few words, I think, about focus groups. I didn't ordinarily or in the past explain myself very much, but between political reporting and the news, everybody thinks they know what focus groups are. Just probably a good idea for me to explain since I'm the one who did them. Focus groups are kind of open-ended discussions with a small group of people. Obviously, even with 8 focus groups, this is 8 times 6, 7, or 8, so at most, around 60 people. It's not like a survey. On the other hand, what people say, it gives us a way of gauging their emotions, their intensity of feeling, and points us in the direction of hypotheses that make sense. And I listen to these folks speak, and I've talked to sports fans and sports participants over the years. And some of the industry people who were working with me on this project also listen to this. So the kinds of things we hear, while we can't turn around and say, yes, thousands of people, believe that way. We can turn around and say, yes, in all likelihood, if we went out and conducted a survey, we would find people who really believed this and that these were, pertinent factors in kind of how they felt. Just kind of a little bit of, what the disposition of them were. We tried to do some groups of younger league bowlers or ex-league bowlers, some older ones, some men, some women, mix it up across the country. Flash from the past there. I guess that's what a league team looked like. Maybe when I was a kid. I don't know. Anyway, well, lapsed league members like league bowling. Surprise. They really enjoy league bowling for the most part.
I miss it. I'll get back into it.
You miss it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll get back into it.
What do you miss most?
All just hanging out with friends, having some beers, and that excitement of, in the 10th frame, you're down by those 29 sticks and you gotta punch out, to or at least get a mark and then finish strong.
Who else misses it?
Oh,
You don't miss it?
I miss the bowling.
Yeah. Miss the bowling.
Yeah, and like he said, the people.
So the camaraderie, the fun, the socializing, the challenge, all still have appeal to a fair number of those who are no longer league bowlers. Now, those interviews I conducted of new current league bowlers, they were a bit more satisfied, a bit more enthusiastic, but it really was only a distinct minority of lapsed league bowlers who left league bowling with no fond memories. Okay. Nope. There we go. So, in some ways, this represents an opportunity and a problem. I think everyone would sit there and say, wow, well, they all like it. I mean, this makes the task easier. Well, yes, they haven't mentally locked the door on league bowling yet the psychology in some ways becomes complex. It's sort of problematic. What it means is that, the explicit reasons for leaving the league don't always reflect the whole story. It's often a case of many little things creeping up on the individual, making it easy for him or her to leave. There's no one real problem that you can point to. And it's possible to address the symptoms, therefore, without really curing the disease. And ultimately, it may not be so much a case of winning lapsed league bowlers back as it is really just sort of providing a general atmosphere that does not give rise to these little annoyances that we will talk about. And there are lots of little things to talk about. And I've kind of arrayed them here from, things that are, kind of the individual and things that are sort of outside the individual. Things that are rational. Nothing's more rational than an injury, and probably nothing's more emotional than stress. These reasons, in some ways, are numerous, and that's why I talk about little annoyances.
Why you left the league, the most recent league? Why leave?
Shoot, you have money for it. Teammates were born.
No money.
Our teammates dropped out.
Teammates dropped out.
I was hurt. I had to leave for that reason.
I left because I was hurt.
I wanted to play a different sport. We moved across town, like far from the ballroom.
Okay, moved too far away.
My sister used to watch my daughter for me, and she moved out, so.
Like it changed, like I had a lot of family members, and then they didn't want to do it anymore, so then it was just like, I was with people I didn't know.
So, lots of reasons. The reasons close to the individual and to the experience are often emotional. And the rationales that kind of are outside the individual are also often are highly rational. But even I think these rational factors can have a highly emotional core. Things like a long season really get feeling like being demanding or oppressive, and kind of league rules get internalized as being unfair. And so the real challenge is responding, or the real difficulty is responding to these rational things, which seem relatively easy. But we still may leave something of that emotional rationale in place. Ultimately, I think in many ways, personal freedom is at the core of why people leave. And let's sort of listen to this conversation. These series.
Not bowling in a league makes me feel
just that I'm not part of a group anymore.
okay.
And I'm missing out on a good time.
Missing out on a good time.
Sometimes I'm sad, but this year I'm so relieved. It just got to be a bit much.
Relieved. Okay.
Let's say, like you're out of the loop with a bunch of your friends.
Okay.
They're still out there bowling and you're at home.
Okay.
I think it makes me feel like I have more time on my hands.
More time on hands good, more time on hands bad.
Good. I feel like there's never enough hours in the day to get things done. So it kind of cuts,
Free.
cuts a little time out.
Okay.
For me,
No, go ahead.
I would say relieved and okay with it right now, because this year would have been too much pressure with things that are going on. It would have been too much.
Okay.
I needed to take a year off.
So, I'm still talking some more.
Yeah. I have to go with relieved as well, especially when it sometimes. But, I mean, you have to be committed when you're on that leave. You really have to kind of stick it out. But it's kind of nice not to have to do that sometimes.
So, I mean,
Because it's long.
long.
It's a long, hard
You
year.
have to be every single
Yes.
week. It's a commitment.
Yeah.
Versus, you can't say, we're getting together with our friends, we can't do it Friday night, instead let's do it Thursday. You can't, because it's a commitment.
I mean, you have to be committed.
Okay.
And sometimes it's hard. You know, you got so many other things going on in your life. Yeah.
For me, I'd say it's a cross between two things. Relieved, because not having that commitment. I was actually bowling in two different leagues, a men's league and a couples league. And that kind of tied up a lot of the schedule. You know, we would try to get together with friends and we'd have a tough time coming up with a date because of the bowling schedule. But, you know, at the same time, part of me is sad because, you know, that 3 hours a week or whatever it was set aside for me every week. Those 3 hours was basically me time. Whereas now, I have to make a conscious effort to make time for myself.
Okay.
For something enjoyable.
I would say relieved as well. There's more time to get a number of other things done.
More time for other things.
So it's really, as you listen to that exchange, those different reasons, you have people who are, in effect, kind of relieved. They're able to do other things. They have time on their hands. They're more in control of their life. But they miss being in the group. They feel a little bit out of step, and they miss that good time. It's really a kind of it's a tug between the group and this sort of call of personal freedom. And it boils down to the fact that keeping league bowlers, and this is, I suppose, probably the real theme in this, is that it requires supporting that social and the camaraderie aspects while giving the individual more personal freedom, or at least a feeling of greater personal freedom. There are certain things in this task, I think there are certain things we need to note. One is that there is really nothing like league bowling in the experience of most league bowlers. And that's a substantial part of its appeal initially, but in some ways other activities just make more sense or feel more natural. So competitive activities like softball may feel similar, but really for what we were talking about, we didn't run into many people that were abandoning league bowling to focus on their softball team or something like that. And some are tight with their league members, but for many, the league night is all they do together. Most belong to nothing else. And in the end, it's just simple things, like shopping with girlfriends, an evening of dinner, movies, that prove, to be more comfortable to people.
And not everybody, but some of the people, I just rather not. And I mean, in the friends I have, we've made it a point to go out for dinner once a month instead. Some of them still bowl, God bless them. But it was just one of those things where you get to choose where you spend your money.
And so a good number of lapsed league bowlers were no longer bowling casually even. And those that were doing it infrequently. As we'll point out, those that were often were just doing it as a family activity with their family. League bowling is also in some ways a closed universe. It's a family affair. Many came to league bowling because of family ties. We talked to a number of people that were on teams that were composed exclusively of family members. Others started on teams of family members. Some learned to bowl from their parents, look forward to being in the league with them. For many, it was a rite of passage. You just widen the circle a little bit more. Virtually everyone we talked to joined their teams at the request of a friend or coworker. In the end, I think a common reason for leaving that, because it's these tight groups that come in as teams, is that the team breaks up. And really very few people kind of seek out a team where they are unknown just to be able to bowl in a team. And, frequent social bowlers among these people who have left are often just doing it with remnants of their teams or with their family members. I have to say something about gambling, too, because I think many saw, the pots and everything as kind of an essential part of the bowling experience. It adds something to the game. The hope of winning pots reduces concern about expense for some. In L.A., there were Vegas leagues that concluded with tournaments in Vegas that seemed pervasive and particularly popular. But as almost everybody pointed out, gambling wasn't a part of most other activities, such as socializing or family activities or playing softball or volleyball or something, to which people who leave might gravitate. And in effect, gambling itself seems to be in direct competition with league bowling. In Buffalo, where there was a number of casinos across the river in Canada, people pointed out with some degree of frequency that when they weren't bowling, they were going to the casino. Guys in Dallas were drawn to competitive poker tournaments. So in some ways, the competitive set isn't golf and basketball and softball and those sorts of sporting activities, but things like gambling. So that's kind of the environment, the thing that makes league bowling different, and the things in which we see a number of these factors at play. Number one is really the time commitment. And I think we've probably, in discussions, we've all heard about this, but I think it's really important to think about what that means, because it has a whole lot of facets. For some, it's simply that the season is just too long for them. And not only is it too long, but it extends beyond familiar boundaries. It extends, across seasons, across sports seasons, across all kinds of things that make natural sense to people.
The Winter League is like 30 to 36.
Oh my God! Yeah, and plus, if you're a Vegas league like we were, the one I was in, we started Labor Day, and we didn't end till Father's Day. I mean, that was our last, our sweepers or whatever was like in freaking end of May. Oh, well, Mother's Day. Yeah, no, it was June. It was June. It was Father's Day weekend.
That's killer.
Yeah.
For others, I mean, you hear it in that tone, is that there's an unremittingness to league bowling. There are no breaks, and because of the way leagues are structured, of having to pay, of having to get substitutes, one is under much greater pressure to make sure he shows up or she shows up than they are, say, with your softball team, perhaps. And for another group, the issue is that the evening is too long, and that this was particularly true of people who bowled in the middle of the week in second shifts, where there were like, 2 shifts of league bowling. You got people who want to get up at work, and it just doesn't work. So the time commitment, adds pressure to the experience. It's a weekly strain to make it to the alley after work. Finding substitutes is troubles and costly. And almost all of the things that people spontaneously suggested that would improve the league bowling experience were things that were about giving greater time flexibility and greater freedom. And they just threw out lots of things. Shorter seasons, seasons of equal length, longer holiday breaks, bowling every other week, lenient pre- and post-bowling policies, and a host of ways to make the evening shorter, although admittedly almost everybody thought the season should be shorter, but the idea of a shorter evening was not universally popular. But it was mentioned. And if nothing else, there are things about the evening that makes it kind of drag. Things like, people taking smoke breaks, people goofing around. It doesn't seem to be moving along. Another key reason are family commitments. Having a child caused some to leave their leagues. Even those without children understood this. And conversely, one of the older, people who were new to a league had come back because her children had grown now. And so this was clearly something that people understood. Now, it struck me as we listened to these people that there was really kind of a deeper, sort of more conceptual conflict here. League bowling is often conceived by people as an individual, or at least a couple's night out, an escape. And in reality, we interviewed very few people that were members of family leagues, and so that their experience may be different, but we didn't really hear from them. But older league bowlers, I think, remember children being brought to alleys at league nights. Now, far fewer seem willing to do this or think that it's appropriate. The league is not necessarily for the family anymore, and there are these newer cultural norms. And so there needs to be a way, it seems to me, to make the league experience more comfortable for those with children. Somehow, back in the days when I was a kid and my dad would sit me up on the bar stool, probably are gone now. But something like that needs to take place. And there needs to be a recognition that to be an empty nester can also be to be, a empty league bowler, somebody ready to come back. They just need to be reminded to come back.
Back when they first, a lot of leagues, some are still at 14, bucks, 60 bucks a week. A lot of them now, if you do the money leagues or something, they're at 21, 22 bucks or more a week.
And they try to get hard for wife too.
Yeah, that's just it for me. See, it's not the 16 or 20 bucks a week that I can't afford for me because I have to pay for her too.
So you should have. You got to double that. So you're looking at 50 bucks. The more dependent league you are. Yeah.
Then you buy food and then you buy drink.
Yeah, that's if you don't have any beers, you don't have any nonsense there.
For me and her.
How does that compare to
So we spent 100.
like golf or being in a softball league or something as far as cost?
Golf,
You can.
actually, it's really not. If you find the right deals with golf, I'm paying 16 bucks to play on something.
There's a website called golfnow.com. You can go and you can find golf courses, 17 times. They have all kinds of deals. Like the earlier you set it, the cheaper it's going to be.
Yeah, golf is
all
one of
kinds
those
of
things.
coupons.
I wish I could get online and find some actual bowling coupons.
But the thing with golf, though, you can actually, and it sounds crazy, you can stretch it out though. You can pay your tee time.
Yeah.
You book your tee time, you pay your green fee, but you don't have to bother over there. You got beer in your car, you've had for a while. You just get some ice and ice chest. You go to your car with the car, put your beer in there, and you're good to go. So you're not supposed to do that.
So I think hearing that conversation that, I hadn't wanted to talk much about expense. Obviously, the economy has been bad, and I expected people to talk about cost of league bowling. But as they talked about it, it became evident to me that their perceptions of the cost of league bowling were different than their perceptions of the cost of other activities. And you heard it in that discussion of the cost of golf. Because you're not necessarily in a golf league, you can find deals, you can get together with your friends, go play golf at earlier hours, sneak beers into your golf bag, all kinds of things that kind of put you a little bit more in control of the cost, or feel as if you are. Whereas with league bowling, you're locked into it, and you have both dues to the league and bowling fees to be paid. So you feel as if you're getting it, from two sides. There's food and drink to be purchased, and that's a natural part of the experience. People are tempted to overindulge, and most contribute to the pots. And in the end, it seemed to be that most felt that a night of league bowling was one of their most expensive nights out, and it happens every week. Other sport leagues tend to have one-time fee. It's done. And there were some complaints that open bowlers received better discounts than league bowlers, and the league bowlers received no deals on food and drinks, although this really wasn't the case at all lanes. But when league bowlers perceived that lack of fairness, it heightened their sense of it being expensive. So in the end, the way the expense was structured was another way in which just league bowling was a different kind of experience for most of these people. League politics, oh my gosh. Virtually every group, someone's upset, focused about league politics, arbitrary rules, enforced inconsistently, league members being shown, it's, difficulty of the old guard, all kinds of things like this. Well, I've heard these kinds of complaints in other arenas. It's not uncommon in groups. They reflect kind of a tension between a desire to just generally socialize, need for some order, But the fact is that a lot of members of a league are not really close to those who organize. They feel a bit on the outside. And this is particularly true when the real social units in the league really are the individual teams. And many members are really invited to join these individual teams. They're not, their identity isn't necessarily with the league and the league structure. And to the extent there was dissatisfaction with the league, except for some very small cases about alley maintenance and stuff like that came up sporadically and didn't seem to really be very consistent, dissatisfaction was always directed at the organizers of the league officials. Now, competitiveness. Just so you know, everybody we talked about was in a handicap or fun league. And one of the things that a lot of them liked about the experience, both lapsed and current, was the opportunity to challenge themselves and experience success. That said, though, a substantial number complained. There were those in the league who were overly competitive. Even those on first place teams voiced complaint. These hyper-competitive people kind of always complained about others and made emotional displays and got angry. This is one of these things where it's hard to gauge numbers, but the emotional intensity was certainly there. And no one ever rose up and complained about people who weren't competitive enough. No one said, boy, the thing I hate about league bowling is the guys on my team just don't try. No one talked like that. Just wasn't part of the experience. Now, what the point is I think league bowling is regarded by a lot of people as a way of, escaping the workplace, escaping the stress, relaxing, getting away. And when you have somebody who's overly competitive, it begins to feel like work again. And to be sure, bowling, like any sport, any activity, is a game of winners and losers. People accept that. But camaraderie is key. And being overly competitive can damage that kind of camaraderie. And to a certain extent, it kind of violates sort of the evolving norms of how competition in a group, is to take place. More and more people, I think, would favor, if there's a balance between camaraderie and competitiveness, I think that the evolving social standard is one in which camaraderie is more important, teamwork is more important. Part of this also is like lack of skill and embarrassment. Now, the thing here is that many admitted to being poor bowlers. It was remarkable how many seemed to accept this. I mean, simply having a good time was what was most important. People enjoyed the idea of improving. Handicapping made it possible for everybody to compete. But there were those who were tired of the stress and embarrassment of being a poor bowler. There were always people who criticized or offered instruction. They always kind of were on the receiving end. That the constant challenge could be draining, and there was always then for them a tension between the social and the competitiveness. What the problem here is that this tension, because it is reflected kind of in a disinterest in taking lessons, a disinterest in actively going about and improving one's bowling skills. And we suspect that there's a kind of that sort of violates that spirit of fun and camaraderie. And also, I think, I kind of suspect that most people did not believe they would really improve. We mentioned that teams fall apart. keeping teams together is really a challenge. When teams fall apart, some are asked to join other teams, but most seem content to walk away. They did not look for a new team, nor did they turn to the bowling center to match them with a team. Apparently, league bowling was not enough of a draw to make the idea of joining a team of strangers appealing. Camaraderie, again, is key. Ultimately, there was this distinct minority for whom boredom and plateauing was taking place. What's interesting is that those few who were bored, I think in some ways had been bowling longer in a league, and this is, in effect, the straw that is an expression of the straw breaking the camel's back.
Unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where I get bored sometimes. Is it 9 o'clock yet? Are we going home? Do they have to throw, 2 balls every time? First strikes, let's go home.
So, I think this reaction seems to kick in maybe after about 5, 6, or 7 years, if it does kick in. And I think just as a kind of a rule of thumb, probably somebody who's been in a league 6 years should be regarded, at least, of being at risk. What struck me very much was that the leagues, the atmosphere surrounding them, really varied. And it was really remarkable to me how varied that experience could be and the way people reacted to it could be. Some were bothered that their league night was too rowdy. Others felt it was too tame. And in fact, this is just mildly amusing.
And things in the bowling alley have changed. They were a lot crazier. I'm not a smoker, but you know what? I used to like it going in there and everybody's smoking and you don't like to drink, but everybody's smoking and drinking and getting crazy. And things tamed down an awful lot in the bowling alleys. It might be sure because of the DWI laws. Mm-hmm. We always had a driver. One of my friend's sons, he would make $30 every night. Come pick us up, and everybody would give him $5 to drive us all home.
So it's too, in a sense, it's become. So I think probably one of the difficulties in dealing with lapsed league bowlers is that the environment is such that it is a much less consistent experience for people. Some like it crazy, some don't like it crazy. Some like, this incredible high-fiving, while others, get criticism. Lanes can be different. Facilities seem to pamper league bowlers, others didn't. All this variability might be troubling in itself, but it really, I think, reflects the fact that underlying the issue for most league bowlers is not one specific motivator, but the sum of all of those complaints that we've heard. And I think what's really important, I'm going to say briefly, talking about kind of these new league bowlers who were enthusiastic, but the fact of the matter is that they sensed the kinds of things that would drive those lapsed league bowlers away. They recognized, having bowled only, when we talked to them, half a year, the problems created by time commitments and conflicts of schedule. They saw the potential conflict with family responsibilities. Several of them said, oh yeah, when we have a kid, I know I'll have to quit. Some already felt intimidated and embarrassed. A few had experienced some genuinely bad nights. They were well aware that there were those in the league, even on their teams, had took the things too seriously. And the fact is, in the time of just one, half season or season, they'd lost teammates. So, I mean, the reasons that drive bowlers from league bowling that we've enumerated are not things that, happen after, 5 or 6 years. They are things that are sort of there from the start, and it's their annoyance that grows over time, not their existence. The reasons for staying are also emotional. And I think it's just worth noting, though, that they are just as strong as kind of those reasons for leaving. But what they're not bound by, there's not this range of kind of outside forces. In fact, the outside forces often feel like, really personal, emotional. The friends, the camaraderie, the regularity of me time really are kind of emotional reactions to the experience too. So, it's in some ways it is hard to support then the things that keep people in the league, because they are emotional reactions to the experience. One just has to be sure that it is an experience that does not raise these kind of negative annoyances quite as much. Can we talk a little bit about the differences? Men and women, I think, they have different takes, and I'm always reluctant to sit here and, make distinctions between men and women, or at least I'm always saying I'm reluctant to make the distinctions and then going to make them. But the following distinctions seem to be generally true. Men took the bowling aspect more seriously. Those who were more seriously competitive tended to be the men. And consequently, there was men who were more likely to be bored and burned out than the women. The women seemed to be more upset about issues of fairness in league politics. Women seem to be in the middle. Men seem to be at both spectrums of the rowdiness spectrum, both ends of the rowdiness spectrum. But in making these distinctions, it was not really clear that there needed to be separate strategies for men or women, provided that the extremely competitive have a place and that it's kind of distinct from the others. So men and women probably can be addressed in the same manner. Younger bowlers, however, are pulled in different directions, and here's where I think maybe there needs to be different strategies. They seem much more readily to jump from one activity to another. The young lapsed bowlers that we talk to, and again, this is something I suppose that would need to be confirmed in a more formal kind of survey, but they had been in their leagues maybe 1 or 2 years. For young men and some women, excitement and competition was indeed important. And those who left leagues for other sports, such as softball and volleyball, were indeed young. They were drawn by other competitive activities. Their attention spans were particularly short, and they were particularly sensitive to economic pressures. Also among these younger league bowlers were those for whom family traditions were strongest. In some ways, we talk about younger bowlers as if, we're talking about young people in general. But for a lot of these younger bowlers were, in a sense, traditionalists, too. And, among the older bowlers were those who were returning after the pressure of family activities. So younger and older lapse bowlers seem to have relatively different needs. The need for competitiveness much stronger among the younger bowlers. The need to keep things quick and up-tempo more important to the younger bowlers. The need to make it economically viable more important for the younger bowlers. An issue that is of interest to some, lapse league bowlers did not seem to care if their leagues were sanctioned. It seemed to be an added expense without an appreciable benefit. Moreover, some saw it as imposing a structure that it could be seen as irrelevant, if not troublesome. In particular, if you posed the question as one of having a more flexible but unsanctioned league, most would have opted for the unsanctioned league. For most, the only meaningful benefit of membership were discounts. However, sanctioning was a mark of seriousness that could be meaningful. There was affection for awards that sanctioning could confer, such as the watch given to the bowler of a 300 game. And some, again, mostly men, recognized that bowling in a sanctioned league gave them access to tournaments. And finally, in Las Vegas, Vegas leagues were sanctioned, and this made sanctioning necessary, if not valued. So I think the point is that most league bowlers, most lapse league bowlers, don't necessarily understand sanctioning as having a particular benefit, and it is either they're either indifferent to it, or it feels like a kind of seriousness that's not part of how they experience the league bowling. And they do not expect the center to form teams. Virtually everyone came to league through friends. But there is an exception to this, which I think is worth noting. Those who move often find themselves too far away from their former alien team. They often stop league bowling. But those individuals in that sort of situation admitted that they would listen to somebody from the bowling center who could help them find a bowling center and a league in their new area. In other words, these sorts of people are amenable to a kind of industry-wide exit interview program, if you will. You know, it makes sense to them. It makes sense to point them in the right direction at that kind of transitional period. And to be sure that if that kind of thing can be up and running, it's not a farther jump, I think, for most people, for it to have a more general applicability, the kind of marrying people up with leagues and teams. But having that very specific rationale of helping the moving transient league bowler find a new home is a way for it to gain a foothold. So just to say a few things in summary. Happier bowlers, more contemporary in this picture. Here are the challenges. Reasons people leave leagues. Dynamic often seems to be a product of several small issues rather than one big one. And this is played off against a background where league bowling is an experience different from other things league bowlers do. And the fact that it's kind of a hermetically sealed sort of environment, that it's something that people become familiar with because it's something their family did. And since socialization and camaraderie is what it's all about, there are just a lot of competing opportunities for pure socialization. And pure socialization is probably, for most of the people I talk to, the competition. And the demands of the family pull parents from leagues, while leagues seem less family-friendly than perhaps was the case in the past. That being said, there is a reservoir of good feeling to build upon, the camaraderie, the belonging, together with a kind of an easy sense of competition and satisfactions are indeed significant aspects. Ultimately, I think the answer lies in giving the individual more control and more freedom, because that's, for those who leave, is what seems to overpower the appeal of the group and the belonging. There needs to be more support for ways in which the individual can feel more in control of the experience. And frankly, the press of time really is an issue, and perhaps leagues that are shorter, flexible, without more breaks, more in tune with the rhythm of other activities is important. Just note, one lapsed league bowler just pointed out to me, it says, you know, if I don't bowl in my league, I'm not in the league from September to June. Lots can happen. Lots can change. The length, you have to think of the length of a league season, not only in terms of what it does to the people who are in it, but also in terms of what it does to the people who are out of it. It's this long period of time where there isn't something, perhaps, and this is kind of in the traditional league sense of, the long, 26-week league. There isn't a point where you can bring them back in easily. You have to wait to that next beginning. Speeding up play, obvious delays being removed, and again, this idea of making it easier for bowlers to drop in and out of leagues. As I said, it begins in the fall. Can't join a league until the summer. The appeal of gambling suggests the need for more frequent emotional high points. And the appeal of Vegas leagues suggests the needs for bigger emotional, perhaps financial payoffs at the end. Mechanisms in an atmosphere that make it easier for younger parents to belong to leagues would be appreciated. Helping league bowlers improve their skills without actually teaching them might remove some of the frustration. I mean, it was interesting that league bowlers, or lapsed league bowlers, did not seem to be interested in lessons, both because it seemed, I think, a little bit too serious, not just both, but because it seemed a little bit too serious. I don't think they had confidence they would actually improve. They didn't seem to have a ton of faith in the professionals at the bowling center as teachers. But when we suggested a couple of times that, well, what if, we, videotaped you bowling? They said, oh yeah, that'd be great. I'd take the tape home and watch it, and, maybe I, see something. So, there may be ways of inculcating, more confidence and better skills without actually teaching. And leagues need to assure that they are fairly run, a process that's mysterious to me. I think is there's a mindset here. I think, frankly, this is not about, a one-time effort to just, get back these lapsed bowlers, and once I institute these programs, all will be well. I think you have to recognize that what you have here is a task that is a task to reduce churn. Recognize that success may mean simply extending the time a league bowler is in a league from 5 years to 7 years. 2 extra years would be great, as opposed to no extra years. And that is an ongoing effort year after year after year. Thank you.
Don't leave. We're going to open the floor to questions, correct?
Yes, we're open.
Right.
Yes. Questions.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you. Did you explore the options of 2-game series versus 3 games as a way of speeding up the experience? And what were the results there?
That seemed to be a logical answer to a very few people, and when we suggested it, it just wasn't enough bowling for most. Some very casual, socially oriented women thought the 2-game evening would be great. But most everybody, current and former, had a hard time seeing 2 games as a sufficient evening of bowling. The answer being that, I get warmed up in the first game and then it's over, Kind of.
Did you have any respondents, focus groups that really had more of a relationship? Okay.
Did you have any respondents that maybe had more of a relationship with the game or the sport, more so than just the team, that they really like to bowl?
The question is to what extent were these real bowling aficionados? And a lot of these people, it's a hard question to answer because a substantial number of them came to bowling through their families. And they took it very seriously, and they looked upon bowling almost aspirationally. They said, gee, my dad bowled, my dad was in a league, and I couldn't wait till I was, so-and-so, and I could be in a league too. And that they had, grown up learning how to bowl, being taught how to bowl. That's just not, workplace camaraderie. That is an affection for the game. That having been said, the fact that many of the people who left their leagues bowled very infrequently, at least by my standards, once they had left, strikes me as they don't have that great an affection for the game.
Over here.
Oh, okay.
In all the places you saw, I know times in essence, length of league, were those bowlers, did you ask the question, willing to pay a little more for less time to length of leagues? Were they willing to pay a little bit more for lineage for a shorter league period?
Question is, this is always a classic question, you want something and willing to pay more for it. And in this case, would they pay more given, in effect, they're using less? That's understandable. And this is a way of dancing around the question that we never asked that.
Just to comment, to hitchhike on that, gentleman.
Sure.
Again, I see it as being a time commitment problem. A lot of the times we've had success where we've had some holes in our center where we went to a trio league, because a trio league can typically finish in an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes as compared to 3 hours, a 4 or 5 person team, depending on the fun, but and every other week. So we've had trio leagues that bowl every other week just because of the time commitment. But the problem is when you shorten these league seasons, like the gentleman was relating to, from, say, 35 to 33 or 33 to 30 or to 26, you don't only lose the lineage, which is not minimal, but is minimal as compared to the lounge and restaurant revenue. So was that addressed at all as far as the revenue? I saw on one of the slides it said revenue from, it was too expensive a night from food and beverage.
I mean, that's, that's true. I saw no evidence that because it was expensive while it was ongoing, people cut back while they were actually doing it. it simply was one of those factors that made them say, boy, when I go, I drop $80 every night that I go. Sure.
Over here.
Go.
Did, any of these league bowlers that quit have like suggestions or anything that the center could have done different, or?
No, because the question is were there suggestions that the center could have done anything differently? And we repeatedly asked them what they expected of the center. And as I said in that one slide, for the most part, to the extent that they had gripes, they were directed at the way the league was organized, which they separated from the bowling center, with the exception of those individuals who felt they were poorly treated by the bowling center, that where they saw, open bowlers getting better discounts or something like that. But that's not really the bowling center doing something to keep them in. So that's kind of how that. Oh, go ahead.
I have a comment.
Sure.
There's been a couple questions. The center that I currently am working at, we've been playing around with shorter season leagues, and I've actually been able to have these bowlers in these leagues bowl more weeks with us, and I've had more bowlers join because it's a shorter commitment. So I don't have to charge them more because I have more bowlers, so I get more lineage, and I actually have them bowling more with me because they don't feel, that 10, 12, 16-week commitment is so much easier for them to say, yes, I can do that, rather than, oh my gosh, I have to commit from Labor Day to Father's Day, as that one gentleman said. Yeah. That's a really long commitment, but they're happy to commit Labor Day to maybe Thanksgiving, and then they'll come right back and they'll do the spring season, and then they'll even come back and do the summer season because they get breaks in between there. So I just want to make a comment about that.
I think that's a good point, but I think what it reflects is that both that, I suspect, I don't really know because I've never managed a bowling center, I suspect that you have to work a little bit harder to do that. And this whole notion of it, it's not just a one-step solution and they all come back. It's managing churn. So ultimately, you've got a lot of competition, you've got a lot of pull, and people are a little bit more antsy, and I think it's just a question of requiring a more constant, more regular effort. And conceivably, as your experience shows, you can have people bowling every bit as often. Sure.
Yes, a lot of great information, but I wanted to ask you a question, if I could. We seem to be in declining numbers, and we seem to be a quick fix society.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you the question, if everything you summarize, everything you come together, what is the one thing we in our industry need to address?
Oh. Okay, well, first I will start by repeating the question. What is the answer? Or what's the one answer? No pressure. I would say that any solution, I think the real answer is that thematic title, where you need to do whatever it takes to give the feeling that the individual is in control of the experience while maintaining the camaraderie which draws people together. More and more people will not tolerate a lack of flexibility simply to be with their friends. They can be with their friends anywhere. So I don't think it's one answer, just like I don't think it's, that there's one problem. But I think it's having a mindset that says, oh, people want to do this. they want to be able to do makeups real easily, pre and post bowling, and sometimes a league won't let them, and it's easy. That needs to be ironed out and facilitated and made to happen. Things that just stand in the way of like that. That's not the quick fix answer, but that is I think the overarching mindset. Give the individual more control while maintaining camaraderie. And boy, that does sound an awful lot like giving the customer what they want. But at one time, what they wanted was a much more structured experience. And now they don't want as much as a structured experience. You got it right there? Alice.
Hello.
Hello.
As far as league bowlers and the unfair tactics and the people that organize, unfortunately, proprietors do not have control over that.
I understand that, yes.
So, like you were just saying about being more flexible with makeups, and we don't pick who our league secretary is and who our president is. How do you address that? I mean, I try to control it as much as you can, but they could really annoy somebody, and next year that person doesn't come back. That affects us.
And the whole notion of the understanding of that, I think, is fairly universal among league bowlers. They know that the center operator is not in charge of the league, but they also know that league is what's controlling the experience, and so it's a difficult thing for you guys.
Right, but maybe USBC, which is not you, I understand, could be more involved so we could have more control over a league and the rules, and that would help us. The officers, this isn't their livelihood. They don't really care.
Fred and I were just talking right here. We teach in our management school. Don't let the inmates run the asylum. Make sure you run your own leagues. Run your own leagues. House-run leagues. Who else? I saw some more hands. What do we got? Anybody else? Fred, did you want to comment?
I just wanted to ask a quick question. You had a comment about instruction. You said that they're interested in improving, but they don't want instruction. I'll bet we could poll every proprietor here, and at one time or the other, we've all offered bowling instruction, whether it be for free as part of a 10-week league, including a bowling ball, and we probably got very few people that were interested in instructions. How do we get past that? If it's like, I want to be better, but I don't want instructions? Are you kidding?
Yeah. As I said, that whole notion of instruction, obviously what people told me is industry experience, too, that they weren't, they didn't necessarily trust it. Or they didn't want it. And I think you have to go back to recognizing probably why they don't want it. One is, for the most, bowling is a funny sport in the sense that, and I've sensed it as a casual bowler, whereas when I play softball and I don't play it well, I regard, when I'm good, I'm good. When I'm bad, it's something I did. Bowling still seems an awful lot like luck to me. Luck. And I think a lot of people who bowl feel as if they're not in total control over what they do, and that the results they get are, partially skill and partially luck. Second point is that to take it seriously enough to want lessons is to take it more seriously than they believe this sort of league camaraderie fun merits. And I think third, probably, if you take what they say about, complaining about, their teammates giving them, tips, which they'd like to, shoot the teammate who does that upon occasion. The learning experience, the teaching experience is fraught with a certain degree of anxiety, too. So it was interesting that, one, they seemed receptive to the idea of being videotaped without their knowing it, in effect. They seemed receptive to the fact that at time of joining a league, it was perfectly acceptable for the league to offer, I don't know, indoctrination, here how a league works, that sort of thing. At which point it would be perfectly acceptable to, integrate a few, bowling tips, bowling for the novice, bowling for the, the inexperienced, something like that. That would be acceptable. So I think instruction has to be in this sort of small bites, unthreatening kind of environment. However that gets done.
I agree with what you just said. And I want to point out that people are nervous about, women don't like their husband telling them how to bowl.
Women don't like their husbands telling them anything.
That's true. And it's annoying when someone is trying to improve you and you didn't ask them.
Yes.
But words have a great deal to do with it. And having a time to come in to let us help you improve your bowling skills. So instead of saying instruction, would you like some instruction? It's much easier if you use lighter words. We started a new seniors league, and it's a really easy little league. They can bowl when they want to. They don't have to unless they want to. They don't have to get substitutes. And we have a coach there the whole time who just goes up and down the lanes and asks little questions and points out small things that they think might help them. Plus, we make it more fun. We have little drawings and things.
Sure.
But I've had all of those seniors come to me and say, hey, this is the league I want to bowl in. I've never had so much fun, and I'm bowling so much better. So I think it's the way you approach it.
Yeah, I suspect that instruction under the guise of tips and tricks, as opposed to improving your bad bowling skills, would be a lot more palatable for a lot of people. Make the assumption that people know how to bowl, and here's something more here's another trick they could use. I'd listen to that. So.
Okay, here's a suggestion, I guess. I don't know if we call it a suggestion or something as an industry we can find a way to do. Scratch golfer. I am. Okay, I don't have golfers coming up to me to ask for me to help them with their golf game. Okay, high average bowler. You try to help other people in your center, but they look at you, even though I have credentials as far as being certified coaches and stuff like that, they don't look at you the same way. Same with golf, they want a pro to help them just because they have the title. As far as I'm concerned, in bowling, we don't have hardly anybody on the center level with the title as being a professional. Even though, my knowledge in bowling is greater than probably a lot of our assistant pros at the golf course. Okay, a lot of your assistant pros are just called an assistant pro because they're in school to be a professional. Okay, they don't know anything more than what anybody else does. I've been through these classes, but they want to know that you're a professional and helping them. They don't want to be helped from a colleague or someone that they see as an equal, and they look at them and go, all right, so why am I taking advice from you? What makes you so special? You've been doing this your whole life. What do you know that's going to make me better? And I think it's, in a way, they have a hard time, a lot of people have a hard time accepting being told something and being taught something from somebody that they see as an equal. But if someone has that title, they tend to respect it more, and they don't mind paying, whatever little fee it is, because they feel like they're getting a service. It's almost like a product that they're buying out of someone that has that knowledge and that title that they can give it to, that they look up to. And it's hard to do that when, okay, so you're a 240 average bowler, why aren't you on TV? Well, look what they're bowling on, it doesn't make any difference. It makes no sense to them. They don't have a clue what's going on. They want the title. And as an organization, we have all these different levels of coaches, and we're a coach, but where's our local professionals that are there as teaching professionals? We don't have teaching professionals. We have silver coaches, gold coaches, whatever. And as being I'm only a bronze level coach, but I tell them, I'm certified USBC, USA Bowling bronze level coach. And they go, oh, okay, so you're professional or not? They don't know what's going on. It's like, I'm not a professional. And it's a title thing is what it is.
Bob, can I reset that a little bit? I mean, I know you're not from the industry.
Yes.
I think I can speak on this topic just a little bit. Those of you who know me. I was the director of Skills Center, the teaching professional program. It failed. I admit, I failed. I'm human. The program failed. And I think your study showed why we failed. I can speak to the fact that I tried to put that program out there in the nation. Didn't bite. Why didn't it bite? Not necessarily because the proprietors didn't want it, because their customers didn't want it. And your focus groups tell us that they're not ready for it yet. I'm not saying they can't be or they won't be. They're just not yet. Doesn't mean you can't start a culture in your bowling center now to start pushing that direction. But the customer base that we have, they look for a little bit more of a recreational aspect than a golfer does. It's a leisure activity. It's also got a sport to it. We have that entity to us, but it's a little bit different. And if I'm right, your study shows that our customer base that's leaving, that we're trying to figure out why they're leaving, they're saying they're not ready for that yet. I'm just coming to be spending some time with my friends. We have to work them there. Trust me, I know the system. I've worked it. It works. It's a lot of work to get it done. I saw Fred's hand first, and then Olivia, and I knew you'd want to come after that.
The interesting thing is the kinds of leagues that we put together that have some instruction in them are called bad bowlers leagues.
I didn't know that.
And there's probably a dozen or probably 24 of us here that have put together these kinds of things. It says, how bad are you? So there is a culture of badness, and they bond and they form teams and they stay together after that, and we give them a shirt that says, I'm bad, really bad, getting better at ABC Center. So the culture is...
Yeah, and I think I heard a little bit of that. People were not, we talked about people complaining about being over-competitive and people complaining about that, but most people readily admitted that they didn't feel they were a particularly good bowler, and most were sort of content with that status. So that may be that's part of the issue too.
This is kind of addressed a little bit at Kelly, and then to everybody else. He's the only guy I know that actually did what we all would like to see, where he actually had a job in charge of 3 centers. And the reason why he got his job, that helped him get his job where he is now, is because of what he did in those 3 centers. And the numbers that they turned around in terms of getting people that weren't bowling into a competitive situation, whatever that is, was astounding. And so I can't believe that the marketplace has changed that much since what you did. All right? But the thing is, it's got to be a culture of the bowling center. And I think that that's the element of some of the great ideas that have come out of Bowl Expo, BPAA, and USBC. There has to be a culture of that in a bowling center. It can't just be, oh, by the way, here's a flyer. In the Buffalo centers, it was a culture. All right? Just like a culture of a business, just like a culture of a university, of what you stand for. It can't just be you dabble in it. It really is about what your focus is. And so to me, he proves that it can be done, but ownership of those bowling centers were completely focused on doing exactly that.
Correct. And it is a cultural thing, and that's what I was trying to say there. You have to do the cultural shift and then create the market base from that. And I'm not the only one. Yes, I started, although Jomo does it now. Did you have a quick question? We're over time, so really fast.
Well, I was going along with the culture of coaching, and it's not going to happen overnight, but I introduced one youth program that has coaching. And then now, a year later, all my youth programs have coaching. And this season, what we're going to do for those leagues that meet and then have free bowling and then come back for the next week for their first week, during that free bowling, we're going to have optional coaching for them. It's a new thing I'm adding. So, thank you.
Right. Coaching, instruction, sometimes get tied together to not.
Yes.
So, thank you. Do you have any closing comments?
Just thank you for having me, and sitting through all of it. That's I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bob. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.